Hi there, you're with English Coach. I'm Simon, and I'm here to talk to you about education and how it is used as a tool to get people out of poverty or to help people to grow in their lives. Now, I have three questions today which I'd like to ask you. So you'll be giving your own answers, but then talk a little bit about and try to answer with the knowledge that I've been taking in and studying for the last 2 or 3 months, you see. And the first question is, why generally isn't education enough to help young people really succeed and get their first jobs or start their careers with fire and passion and with that interest and with that level of success, you know? And the question is, why isn't education enough? Why isn't it enough just to study and then you're going to be okay? And it this touches on the theme of today, which is theory and practice, and how most of our formal education, from kindergarten to university, is based on theory and not practice. Of course, we have some examples of practice going on at some schools. See, those experimental models have results which are not completely black and white, they're not completely consolidated, but the variables point to more critical thinking and more creative thinking in the process, where you have physical practice, or in other words, application of those theory things that you were studying, you know, uh, understanding some kind of theory or understanding something about mathematics or geography or history, and then going out and actually seeing that thing, touching that thing, and realizing its relevance in the real world. This is practiced very little by schools. Now, I'm not just saying this to make fun or to take some kind of um, merit away from schools. You know, I think a lot of schools do good work, but I do want to point this out as a point of improvement for schools, because schools are very critical institutes where they are practicing pointing out the deficiencies of their students twice or three times or even four times a year. So it's only fair for us to turn around and say, hey, listen, are you guys really taking this seriously? Or is this tradition and this formal register of everything more important than actual results? You know, wearing the uniform and practicing the rules of the school, is that more important than going out of the school more prepared to live your life? So the first question is, why isn't education enough? And my first answer to that is, there is a lack of practice, there is a lack of application, and therefore there is a lack of coherency and congruency between the subject that they're learning in theory and how that applies to real life. Okay. Number two, how do we cultivate interest and how do we cultivate curiosity in students? Well, it is exactly through that. It is exactly through asking questions at the beginning of a class, getting students to imagine how these things would work in real life. How, for example, something changes in the earth, if we're talking about geography, how something changes in mathematics when we're talking about that, or science, or imagining a different historical event, you know, and how that would impact mankind today. These kinds of questions that really force a student to reflect and be provoked by these questions, you know. This is something very interesting and something I think is taken for granted. That, okay, class has started, guys, sit down, open your books to page 57. Instead of, what would the world be like without this president, or what would the world be like without this general, or what would the world be like if this war had never happened, or if this sickness had never come about. And then the question is, why don't schools go into physical examples about theory, from their theories that they come up with that are sound theories and do connect to reality? Why don't they build those connections stronger? Why don't they connect all of the theories that they need to teach in school to physical examples and applications, so that kinesthetic learners and other learners like visual learners, which are the majority of learners, can have a better understanding and get a better idea. And here, what I see is that the school doesn't want to be responsible for making that connection. Most schools don't want to put themselves as responsible for making the connection between these theories and the real world. Now, this is dangerous. Why is it dangerous for us to just teach theories and just teach ideas and without any actual application? Well, there's a few different factors involved. One of the factors that I have learned a lot about, and I like to also talk about in my videos, is the fact that ideas can be very valuable, but they're really worth nothing if nobody's working on them. So you can have 1,000 ideas, a beautiful idea, you can go and pay a big patent for that, but so long as it stays on paper, it's worth nothing. It's worth nothing. Few people can actually sell ideas. Most people have to take their own idea, invest in that idea, make it go well, and then something comes out of it. Why? Because practice matters. Practice makes perfect. Theory is wonderful in theory. And practice makes perfect in reality. So what do we want? Do we want our children to be really educated for reality, or do we want them to be full of theories and ideas? Of course, we need ideas. We need a creative child. And I don't think by giving physical examples and physical applications that creativity goes down. In fact, my argument is that after creativity and these kinds of things, the level of imagination and creativity goes up, because then they start imagining other things that could be applied to what they have learned. And we start getting geniuses at a younger age, because you're giving them the chance to explore real things in practice instead of just textbooks in a classroom or iPads in a classroom, whatever it is that they're doing just in a room, So also, one of the most dangerous things in education in poorer communities that I see, especially here in Brazil, as I live in Brazil, is you have a lot of kids learning different subjects, some more abstract subjects about language and maths, and often there is no real connection to the real world. So they are positioned, or they are prepared to get good grades. How they get the grades doesn't matter. Or if you can do whatever you can to get the grades. It's not about the learning, it's about the grades. Now, when the emphasis goes on the grades and not the learning, something else happens. So there's no actual connection with reality. It's more like a game of grades. It's more like absorb that information for one purpose, to get a high level on the test. So curiosity is only there for the grade. Interest is only there for the grade. Imagine if children were learning because they're really authentically curious, or they're really authentically interested in that subject because it's about something they like. It could be something as silly as flying a kite, and they're learning physics or something like that. Or it could be programming video games and they're learning mathematics and there's a connection and they see the connection and it's given in class. It's a huge difference when you can show a child how mathematics or another subject meets the real world, instead of just going through theories and trying to get them to be competitive on grades instead of raise their intellect. Okay? Do we live in a world where we cannot have grades? No, we don't. We need grades. We need KPIs. We need these levels of evaluations. We will always need them. But when they become the sole purpose, it really does compromise the learning, the level of and quality of learning, you know? And so this has been the point of my video today. I hope that it made sense for you in some way. And if you are an adult of my age and you've already got your own children, I would encourage you to take your children and get them to see how what they're learning in school has a direct connection with the outside world. Whether it's geography and teaching them about different countries and how those countries are countries of conflict, or how those countries are rich or poor, or how those countries are playing a certain role in the global economy. Things like this, or even if it's mathematics and it's about how much they're getting for their monthly bank account, that you're giving into their monthly bank account based on perhaps jobs that they do in the house. Okay, it sounds very utopian, but it's possible, right? It's possible to have these kinds of incentives for your children, I hope. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like and post a comment. Feel free to post a comment. I'd be very interested to hear your opinion on this whole situation of education, applied education and theoretical education. What's your opinion? Please send me that comment so we can talk about it below. Thanks.